Here we go. It's another Westerley VR Race preview. Series 3, Race 2, the Lido Rido. This is Ruislip Lido. Probably not the best time to have ridden and filmed this because it was mid-morning on a weekend, so relatively busy, although it's February. I mean, it gets a lot busier in summer as we go past the cafe and the artificial beach by the lake stroke reservoir. Obviously, as you can see, this is quite a popular destination for walkers, and it's surrounded by quite a lot of woodland. You can see some of it to our left and certainly the other end of the lake, and a bit of open grassland, so it's a wide open space, and as you can see, that little artificial beach there. When it was first put, I suppose, when I say first, it is a reservoir, although it looks like a lake, and it was many years ago seen as somewhere where Londoners could come out and swim and do water skiing and all the rest of it. So the whole lake was geared up for water sports. But modern thinking is that it's a nature reserve. So although that artificial beach is still there, you're not actually allowed to swim in the water because it upsets the ducks and other wildlife that live in the lake. And as you can see here, we're going along the bit of the reservoir that I suppose this is effectively a dam that we're riding across here, because you can see the water level on the right is much higher than the land on our left. So this is crossing a dam. Not quite as scenic as the ones you see in the Tour de France and other Grand Tours, but it'll do for Ruislip. So here we are, just coming out of the Lido area. This is also a popular start for some Audax rides. They did originally start at the cafe where we just started, but there's a little pub just to our right on the shores of the lake, and they start from there these days and finish there. Now we come out of there and we're going to go past these few houses, and we're going to do a big loop and finish up here again. Now there are some little bumps along the way, so this one is a little bit choppy, and tactically you need to be aware of where the climbs are, so watch carefully. Now this first section, to ease you in, apart from the fact there is a little rise to get onto this road, and there's a little dip as we turn left. When we come back, we're going to be coming from the right, so there's a great big descent at the end, all the way down to that junction, and then back round the lake as we've done before. And again, apologies for recording this one a little bit later in the morning than I usually do, because the traffic's heavier, but it's not too bad. We'll survive. So we're going to turn right here and go along what is a sort of slightly industrial road with the local crematorium on it. Not particularly scenic, but what it does do, and this whole sort of area that we're in, is kind of mark the edge of where the buildings sort of stop on that never-ending sort of London suburbia. So we were right on that peripheral edge. Although we're probably a mile or so from the edge of London, the buildings sort of stop not far from here anyway. So it's, a few hundred yards to our right, you go back into the woods that surround that area. The Ruislip Lido is part of Ruislip Woods, so it becomes a woodland there. So as I say, just going past these few industrial units and a few houses and bits and pieces that are here right on the periphery. You'll see soon that we carry on with houses to our left and fields to our right, which does mark the edge of, it's not actually the official boundary of London, as I say, but it kind of marks the end of the buildings and the beginning of the countryside. So this is fairly flat. This is not going to be too challenging, in these early stages. So you get your legs all warmed up nicely, make sure you're in the right group, and so on and so forth. So hopefully there'll be quite a tight, big pack by now. And we're going to turn left, and it shouldn't break up seriously. We're going to turn right, I should say. It shouldn't break up seriously immediately, but we do start to get the lumps after that as it gets a bit hillier as we head northwards. As a sort of very, I suppose, a very rudimentary description, if you go south, you go towards effectively the River Thames, and London is on the Thames Valley. So if you head northwards from here, you will tend to go up, and if you head southwards, you will tend to go down. That's not strictly true. There are sort of bit lumps on the way, and we are quite near the top of the Thames Valley here, so there's not much further to climb. But it's a little bit lumpier than it is further south. So you can come out here for a sort of evening ride if you live locally, and get a few sort of punchy little climbs in. And in fact, you can even do reps if you get your loops right. You can do reps up and down the hills, even though they're not the biggest in the world. There's some around here to train on anyway. As I say, this bit fairly flat. We're just coming towards the end of this road, and then we're going to sort of make a turn up towards Harefield, where it is more countrified. Although strictly still within the Greater London boundaries, you're kind of technically you're in London, but it kind of isn't, because as I say, you get more fields, and you can see that starting here, and we turn past the pub, and that's kind of about it for civilization, if that's the right word, with no disrespect to our country friends who live outside of the urban sprawl. So here we go, and this is going to be sort of gently uphill. It's always nice on a club ride coming back down this road, because it feels fast when you've got a lot of miles in your legs. But as you can see, there is a very sort of false flat, sort of gentle rise, and we are heading northwards towards Harefield here. There is a little dip actually after here, so as I say, it can be slightly undulating, which was quite good because it gave me enough speed to get past this dumper truck, which I kind of thought was going to spoil your view of the whole video if I got stuck behind it going up the next hill. So here we go, swashbuckling daredevil overtaking of the big dumper truck to give you a nice clear view of the Middlesex countryside. And I bet it's not too often you get a phrase like Middlesex countryside, because there ain't a lot of it. Anyway, as I say, we are heading towards Harefield. That's probably the best of the slope. We're probably going to go up the other way now, so it's slightly uphill. These shouldn't really affect the race. Obviously, the usual thing that if you are struggling on the back of a group, a 1% gradient can make a difference between hanging on and dropping off the back of the group, but nothing significant yet. But it's coming up, mark my words. We are going to sort of go up and over a little crest, then down, and then probably the steepest, most difficult climb of the day comes after that. As I say, still a slight climb as we go past various sort of facilities and fields on the right. There's a Girl Guides camping sites certainly along that road, just that we've been past. Do get the odd house along here, despite its country setting. I'm not quite sure what the planning rules allow for, and some are clearly older than others. But as I say, it's pretty rural out here until we get to Harefield, which is something that's sort of kind of retained a village charm, despite being technically within the London borders. And this is quite a regular route on club rides for us as escape routes out of London. Harefield's quite a good portal. There's various ways to it as well, with varying degrees of climbs. Each one invariably has a climb, because Harefield's at the top of a hill. So a little bit spoilt for choice on the way out. And it is a quick bolt hole out of London, this area. So it's very popular with cyclists. And we do notice, we start our club rides at the Polish War Memorial, and we notice that lots of people coming out of London do swarm through past us while we're sort of collecting ourselves together, which suggests that we're not the only ones who use this as an escape route out into the Chiltern Hills. As you can see, the gentle climb now. This is crest, then we go down a dip, and then the main climb up to Harefield. This is it's not particularly steep. It could split the pack. It's probably far too early in the race to attack. You might be able to split the field, but you won't get away solo in a small group, I don't think, on this hill alone. It's probably too early, but if you can if you can break away with a dozen or so riders, you might just be in a position to snap the elastic for the rest and whittle it down to ensure a smaller sprint finish, if that's what you want. So now we get the big descent off that. In real life, it's quite important to sort of kind of get your momentum here, because as I say, it goes down to a little small bridge that you'll hardly notice on the screen because it's of the way the bridge has been built. But you go over that, and then of course you just go straight up, and it's the climb to Harefield, which gets progressively steeper as you go up here. So initially it doesn't feel too bad. That's the bridge there. You'll hardly notice it. And you start going up, but the steepest bit of this climb is towards the top. So yes, if you feel strong enough to attack on the hill, but just remember that if you've given it everything, that last little push might just be the bit that is your undoing. So caution, but this is where I think the first attacks of the race ought to take place. This is probably the hardest climb you're going to endure all day. So, this is the one if you feel strong. But as I say, just bear in mind that the final section is the steepest. As you can see, it's slightly longer than anything we've seen so far in this race, which is generally undulating. This will take us up into Harefield village, and from there on in, it's not going to be particularly testing. Although I say that there is actually one other steep ramp just the other side of Harefield, but this is the long, arduous climb that I think will be the first major splinter in the group, and it will sort out who's going to be in that front group. Now we're just getting up to the steep part here. There's a couple of houses you'll see coming up, and when you see those houses, that's probably the top. So this little steep section is not very long. It ends just after that house that you can see there. Well, you can probably see for yourself that clearly the gradient percentage has gone up because you get that little crest on the road. And this is where it kind of levels out. I mean, it's a bit of false flat, but suddenly you can start spinning out and progressing. So that is the key attack place. As I say, there's one potential other attack place, which is the other side of Harefield. I'll pinpoint that when we get there. So we're just going to go through the village next, which has a nice little pond with a war memorial and retains something of an old English village charm, but I don't think it's going to win the prettiest village in the world or in the country even, but it's got a little bit of that, so we won't knock it. Harefield also home to the Harefield Hospital, which was one of the groundbreaking hospitals in heart surgery over the years. I think it did one of the early heart transplants and remains to this day a heart specialist hospital and one of the leading ones, I believe. Although sadly, my next door neighbour died there about a week or two before I'm recording this, but she was rather old, so let's not judge the surgeons at Harefield Hospital too harshly on that one. So pretty soon we'll start seeing the buildings as we enter Harefield. The first couple just coming up on the right. There's a football club on the left. A nice little sign, green and white sign, Hillingdon Borough ones, telling us that you're entering Harefield. So we're going to go up to the roundabout in the centre of Harefield. We will hang a right heading back towards Ruislip. This is fairly common. In fact, years ago, we used to start our club rides up here. And at the time, there were several members lived up this way, and many of the others lived in West London. And because they came out this way, it was deemed not a bad place to have a rendezvous to start our club rides, because it was waste of time the guys who lived up this way riding into town just to ride back out again. However, we have reverted back to the Polish War Memorial based on the membership, and I certainly wouldn't refuse anybody who wanted to meet up here, but I don't think it suits the club quite as much. And of course, we are a West London club, and as much as Harefield might be in West London, it's kind of a little bit outside, shall we say. As you can see, the nice green on the side, we just passed the pond there with the War Memorial, and we get up to this nice little roundabout of the pub on the corner, giving you that sort of characteristic of a British village. We're going to hang right, and we will be going past Harefield Hospital on our left very, very shortly. That is a little road, actually. You can see some of the hospital signs coming up. The main entrance is a little bit further up. But the road down by the hospital actually offers a wonderful climb coming in the other direction, Springwells Lane, which is very, very steep off the canal up to the hospital. And we use that one quite a lot on our club rides as well. So the hospital entrance is the next turning on the left, coming up very, very shortly. Just there. So we're going to go along here. There is another dip, and then as I say, there is a ramp. The ramp, I've slightly smoothed it on the race so that it doesn't give you that abrupt jolt that you can sometimes get on one of these magic roads. So it may not feel quite as steep as it really is in real life, but I mean, you will do the whole ramp, but just kind of smooth in a way that it doesn't disrupt unnecessarily. When these routes convert into magic roads, there's a certain amount of playing around with them that you have to do just to ensure that the way it manifests itself is raceable. And if you're not very careful, you get rogue points that cause all sorts of problems with the smoothness of the race. So as I say, the gradient might not feel quite as bad as it does when you're actually riding it. And if you're actually riding it, it does catch you out. It can catch you out quite badly, actually, this little road, because it's kind of ridiculously steep, but only for maybe 2 or 3 meters. But it just takes the momentum off your bike, so you won't get that in this race. Even though you'll do the ramp, it'll not be that sort of ridiculous sudden steep ramp of about 3 meters that just actually sort of almost brings you to halt. It's a little way to go. There's not a lot to describe along here. This is I don't know if we're still in Middlesex or Greater London, or we might actually be in Hertfordshire here. But either way, you can see the sign there indicating that we're about to go down a slope. So you'll get this on the RGT race. When you are going down this, as I say, the ramp, you will notice the ramp, as I say, even though it's not going to be quite as bad as it will look here. But you kind of do this swing to the left, and as you go around this swing to the right, and this is why you don't notice it in real life, you don't see it coming. And just after this water, and the ramp is just a bit further up, the car's just about to go up it there. So as I say, it's not very long, but it just catches you out and loses your momentum. So look for that. As I say, it is smooth, so it's not quite as steep. I mean, it's almost as steep, but not quite as steep as here. You can just see how much my bike's slowing down on that little section for 3 or 4 meters. And then as soon as you get to there, you're up and running again. I think that's a good place to attack if you've got the strength, but beware it's coming. This is only a 1-lap race, so you only get one chance. So just remember, it is perhaps the second climb of the day of any notes, that one. Now we're going to go and turn right just up here, where the road swings around to the left and goes down to Rickmansworth. We're going to go right for a little cut through, and whilst it's not billed as a tour of the hospitals, we've just passed Harefield Hospital. We will go past Mount Vernon Hospital next. In fact, at Mount Vernon there are 2 hospitals. There's one private and one well, the National Health one is Mount Vernon. So you could argue that we're going to pass 3 hospitals on this trip, but it's still called Lido Rido, starting, of course, and finishing at Ruislip Lido. And as I say, Ruislip Lido, quite a popular start and finish point for some of the local Audaxes. If you're not from the UK, that's a Randon A. We all understand that Audax means something slightly different, certainly in Italy and probably France. But we call Randonnaise Audaxes in this country. No doubt incorrectly, but there we go. So we swing that right. This is a false flat lane. It's almost flat, but probably slightly uphill. You won't notice it again in an RGT race, particularly if you're in the pack. As I say, this is a little cut through. We're going to meet one of the other roads out of Harefield that we didn't take us back to Mount Vernon, and then we start the journey home. There is one other climb coming up, which is the 3rd one of the day, and that is even steeper than the one that we've just done. So you kind of, as I say, I've taken the sting out of the 3rd one as well, because I think it would wreck the race. So you're still going to do it, but it's not quite as steep as the real life version, just to keep the race flowing. But it is one of those where you see cyclists almost grind to a halt as they get to the top of the next one. I'll indicate that when it's coming. So broadly, strategy-wise, there are 3 attack points. There's the first one on the road up to Harefield. After Harefield, we do that dip, and there's a little steep ramp, which I think you could probably do a little attack on. And the third one, which is in Duxhill Road, which I'll, as I say, will indicate shortly. And that will appear on your profile as being after a descent that goes down to a little dip and then up again. Even after that, there is one other dip and rise, but the fourth one is not significant enough, because I think by then the packs will have sorted themselves out, and unless you're absolutely on your last legs, you should stay with whatever group you found yourself in by the fourth one. But this third one is probably the most challenging in terms of gradient. It's not as long as the first one. So let's run over those again. The first one is the longest one, and I think that's the first attack. The second one is the shortest one, but it's got a little steep bit in it. The third one is the steepest one, but as I say, the second and the third ones, I have eased the gradient a little bit just to stop the silly ramps. And then the fourth one probably shouldn't make a lot of difference, but it's probably worth an attack because you're so close to the finish. We're going to go left here. This is the road up to Mount Vernon Hospital. Again, this section is going to be relatively flat. And actually, we're going to sort of loop round Mount Vernon Hospital. So we'll sit on the right, and then we're going to kind of loop round, and we'll go past the other side of it. And after that is a big descent, which ultimately will finish. The descent itself will lead us to the steep third climb of the day. So that's basically, it's all about 3 climbs, maybe 4. So get your strategies out. I do recommend you look at the Ride with GPS route that we publish, and if you go on RGT user events or whatever, or even go on the Westerly CC website, that's www.westerly.cc, you will find links to the Ride with GPS route, and you can study it and get a feel for where the lumps are. And in fact, where the geography is, you can see exactly where we are. It's all very well me mentioning all these places, but if you're not from around these parts, you probably won't be aware of them as we go past the hospital sign telling us we're heading towards Mount Vernon Hospital and whatever the name of the other hospital is, which is strange. I can't remember the name of that because it's the only hospital I've ever actually had to go in and have any surgery in. But there we are. I should know, really, as a local hospital. I think I'll still call it Mount Vernon because that's the main hospital. But as I say, there's 2 hospitals on the same site. That's Mount Vernon Hospital, or the back of it there. That was the entrance. So we're just going to go up here to the end of the road, turn right, and then double back around the other side of the hospital. Again, you can see it's fairly flat here. But as we do go past Mount Vernon Hospital, that's when the big descent starts before that third climb. So I would imagine everybody here is going to be in packs. I mean, the packs will have probably sort of shuffled themselves into about 2 or 3 groups. As I say on all of these previews, the way these races are designed, it's not really about winning. If you are a sort of grade 2 or grade 3 rider, and I certainly am, I know that I'm not going to win, but I do enjoy racing with whatever group I find myself in, and have a little personal battle with whoever I find, in my company. And it's quite nice that some of you afterwards, certainly through Strava, will make little comments about, the fact that we rode together, things like that. And I think there is a nice community in these Westerly VR races. There's certainly plenty of banter on the message board at the beginning, and there's a bit of a community. We get quite a lot of regular returning riders. So, yeah, and thank you to anybody that's commented on Strava afterwards. It's great. And we look forward to seeing you again and again and again. Anyway, this is now a critical point. This will just feel like a right turn on your RGT Magic Road. But of course, what we're actually doing now is doubling back around the other side of Mount Vernon Hospital. So as we go past this pub on the right, that's when we start going around the other side of the hospital. There's a bend to the left, and then the descent really does begin. Again, still reasonably flat here, although probably a little bit false flat, and it's probably something of a slight descent here. But I don't think it'll be decisive. As we go past the sign telling us we're back into London Borough of Hillingdon. Momentarily, that road just takes you out into Hertfordshire, where the pub was. Right, so you can see just ahead, just past those cars coming the other direction, is where Mount Vernon Hospital's main entrance is. The bus coming out there is coming out from the hospital. There's plenty of bus stops and a bit of a bus depot in there. And as we turn this bend, this is where the descent's going to start telling. As you can see, as we head down towards Northwood. Northwood also in the London Borough of Hillingdon. So we're almost within one borough in the whole race with that little dip out into Hertfordshire. Now, although this descent will appear longer, we're going to hit some traffic lights in the moment where we turn right, and we will continue descending. Obviously, on your profile, it'll look like one descent, but of course, in real life, it does get broken up by this set of traffic lights here, where we have to turn right and unfortunately wait for the traffic going the other way. That will just appear like a swing round bend on the actual day of the race as we go around, but you can see it sort of carries on going downhill, and just as we go around the next bend, you'll see that it drops dramatically, and straight after that, and you hit the bottom of that, you're going to go up the steepest one of the day, which is climb 3 out of the. There's plenty of undulations, but it's these 4 key climbs, and this is the descent that leads us into climb number 3. So you should have a fair bit of momentum when you hit the bottom. I mean, this is what usually happens in the real life version of this. You know, we come steaming down here, and you know, if somebody doesn't know the road, you're busy saying get some speed up because it will get you halfway up the climb at the other side. But it's the top bit of the climb on the other side that is going to be the telling part. So you probably need a lot of momentum coming down here, and obviously the physics in an RGT race, which are excellent. I mean, they are, as far as I'm concerned, at this time, the most realistic platform. But never things aren't quite the same, so I can't guarantee anything. So this is it. We're at the bottom of the dip, and as you can see, just on the right, we get that weird castle thing. I really don't know why that castle's there, or that little tower's there. But that tower marks the beginning of the climb, and you can see just further on, past where that person is in the. It's not person. There is a person there. Where that person is, that's where it just gets steep, just where that car is about now. So it's that last little bit that just ramps up, and you can begin to see the fact that I'm slowing down as you hit that last little bit. So yeah, as I say, get as much momentum as you can. It'll get you as far up as this as you can, but it's not very far. You can see, you know, just where that car's coming over at the top is the top, so it doesn't last for very long. And if you've got the strength, this could be the decisive move, because after this, although there's one little small climb, most of the rest of this is going to be downhill, and you are getting close to the finish. So you're really, you know, if you do some damage here and get away and not get caught on any of the descents, the race could be yours. So this is a very, very, very key one, this third one. As I say, the first, second and third ones are the key ones, but depending on how the race has panned out, number 3 could be where it all gets decided. So as I say, now you're at the top of climb 3, you get this little bit of flat around about these houses. Then after the houses, there's a final dip with what I call climb 4, but it's not particularly, it's not hard, but it's, I think, key because where it is in the race, because once you get over climb 4, it's downhill to the finish. So it's key in terms of the race, but it's not particularly difficult or decisive in terms of difficulty. So when the houses end, you'll see the dip, as I say. We've got a little way to go, a little bit further up. Obviously we've got some traffic lights here, so that's unfortunately, assuming the traffic lights were red, I started going round and the traffic lights changed whilst I was going round. So I don't think the guy in that car was too happy with me when I took his space going around the roadworks. But here we come to the end of the houses, and you'll see the dip coming up any moment now, really. It's one of those things. Here we go. So we're now on the dip, which is more. You'll see it more clearly as we get round the bend a little bit, because you can see the fields and the effect of the dip going up to the traffic lights. But as I say, you should be sort of picking up momentum here as we go through, and as the trees end, you'll start seeing how it all pans out. But like I say, by now you are racing for the finish, and okay, you know, it depends how much you've got left in your legs. We're in the fields, and the final bit of the dip just around this, just past this sign. As you can see where the road sort of does that final little bit of dip by the field. So here we go. So once we get past this, as I say, we've got this fourth climb, which isn't difficult or anything like that, but might be significant because we are racing for the finish now. Probably a kilometre or so to go, maybe 1.5, I'm guessing, but certainly you're within the last 1.5 to 1k as we go down this dip. And ultimately, I think where the green verge on the right starts getting wider is where we start going uphill to the set of traffic lights at the top of Ruislip Woods. Right, so now we're going upwards, as I said. This is climb 4. It's not steep, it's not long, but it's at a key moment because there's probably a kilometre, not much more, left to the finish. You can see how quickly we can get up this. It's not long, as I say. You'll see the traffic lights. If you see the traffic lights, we've crested by the time we get to the traffic lights, and you've got this big downhill where you can pick up a lot of speed as we go past Ruislip Woods and down to the Lido again. Remember, we are going to turn into the Lido and go around the lake, so the last bit is relatively flat. I mean, it's probably slightly downhill, to be honest, but this descent as we go past the traffic lights, which you can now see, is really where you're going to build up your speed. We're on the descent before the traffic lights. I mean, when we come up this hill the other way, Ducks Hill Road, as you're coming up, you just look at those traffic lights as your target, because you know when you get to the traffic lights, you've pretty much done it. And it's a deceptive hill because as anyone who lives around here will tell you, it doesn't look as hard as it ever feels when you ride it. I mean, it is steeper than it looks. It's just an odd one. So you'll get good speed going down here. And this brings us down to the Lido where we came out at the beginning. And if you remember, there was a little queue of cars by the petrol station. We're going to turn into the Lido just before where those cars were. But you can see the speed building up here. As I say, this is a steeper slope than it ever appears to the naked eye. Where the buildings start, we are hitting again. This is this divide between this where the buildings stop and kind of London starts. So as soon as we hit these buildings, you know, you get into London, and you can see the little sign there saying you're coming into Ruislip, and so you're in London, and the buildings start. See where the cars just turned left into there? That's where we're going into the Lido. So around here, I mean, there's something of a bit of a false flat on this first section, but you know, with the speed you've got, you are not going to notice this little minor ramp that we're going up now. As I say, I think you won't even see it's there on the day, and you certainly have the momentum from the descent. We're going to turn right into the Lido, and it's an effective descent. Again, because of the time of day I rode it, there's too many people in here, so it wasn't. I wasn't able to particularly ride fast. Perhaps I should have gone the other side of that building. There's two ways round here, but yeah, you get the view on this side. You can see the beach over there and the lake, stroke reservoir. Have to crawl past the person in the wheelchair and kids on bikes. As I say, if you look at the other path down on the right, I would have had a clear run, wouldn't I? Look, but there we are. As I say, you can see the beach over there on your left. We're heading round to there. You can see the buildings. There's a cafe there. There's a little miniature railway, and that's the escape into the woods. If you get the miniature railway, it takes you out to little stations at various places around Ruislip Woods, and you get out, have your walk, and maybe get the train back to the cafe by the beach. Anyway, good luck. Hope you have a good race, and the last little bit as we come round. As I say, this is I'm sure you'll be racing it a lot faster than I am here, because as I say, it's probably not the best time. If I'd come about 2 hours earlier, this would have been a clean ride. You can see the beach again there. This was February, so there's nobody in their swimming costumes, and in fact it's probably quite a mild day for February, so quite nice. Everybody's got their jackets on still, of course. Yeah. This is Britain. So as I weave through the people, when we come up to the finish, you can see the cafe on the right, and we're going to end at the little brown building ahead of us, which is, of course, the railway station. Not open today, though. Good luck. Enjoy the race.